Are you ready to shift the way you think about yourself and open up greater possibilities for your life? The following episode is a live recording from a Zoom webinar hosted by Elle with special guest Ashley Walters. Keep listening.
For those of you who don't know Elle is a clarity and confidence coach. She's the host of the She Made It podcast. And she spent the first part of her career as an actress. She traveled the world performing, and then she produced the speaking career of the nationally recognized keynote speaker and best-selling author Curtis Zimmerman. So some of you may know him. Some of you may have found out about this event through him.
Same last name, give me a clue.
Right. Yeah, and he's actually done some work too with Curiosity, which is how we know Ashley. So lots of connections all around. I also just wanted to introduce Ashley. So Ashley is amazing. We're so excited that she's here. She's the Chief Development Officer and the co-owner of Curiosity. This happened recently. And Curiosity is an independent agency in Cincinnati and AdAge Small Agency of the Year. It's a really cool place. And most recently, Ashley was named to Adweek's 2021 Women Trailblazer list out of hundreds of applicants, including Kamala Harris. Her name's right next to hers on that list, so it's pretty cool. And you'll get to hear about how Ashley is a champion of inclusivity and diversity in media. And also she's the mom of 3 young girls. So I'm so excited that you're all here. So excited to hear this conversation between Elle and Ashley. Yay.
Yeah, thank you, Clara. Thank you very much. And so excited that you're here, Ashley. So I guess, Ashley, you and I met, I think it was about 2017, and it was a collaboration with the Curtis Zimmerman Group and Curiosity. And so Clara gave us a little snippet about Curiosity, but can you give us, like, so people have a context, can you give us sort of like the pitch for that elevator pitch for Curiosity so we can understand where you're coming from?
Absolutely. So excited to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. So this is actually my job, is to pitch Curiosity. So I better do a good job at this. We are an independent creative solutions agency headquartered in Cincinnati. We have about 50 employees, and we're focused on 4 key things: research and strategy, creative. So think TV commercials, radio spots, out of home, social media, things like that, as well as media. So making sure those stories and that creative is actually placed so people like us can see it and experience it. And then also analytics, making sure that all of our creative and media is working for our clients. We work with a ton of clients that you guys might know, like Native Deodorant is a big client of ours, among many others.
Yeah, and it's also a super, super fun place to be. Like the name Curiosity sort of like rings through every single thing you do. That's what I think was so interesting for me to learn about the company. So yeah,
that's really true. Everything that we do, from how we hire to our processes, how we interact with each other and onboard our clients, it's all about the science and the emotional state of, when you're being curious, what those results are. And so I absolutely love our name, and I love how we've brought that positioning to life.
Yeah. So as Clara said, I've been doing master classes, and I'm the host of a podcast, She Made It. And one of my favorite parts of doing the podcast is when I get to do live events, and I do sort of in-person recordings. Well, of course, COVID shut all that down. So we've been doing these like She Made It live webinars to try to kind of bring back that like in-person experience, but we're also recording a podcast. And the goal of She Made It is to really like peek back behind the curtain in the journey of women who are successful, whether that's as a business owner, in their corporate job, as a mother, building a legacy, whatever that is. So we're going to get the opportunity to kind of like learn about Ashley. But the funny story of why this is so special to me is that we originally had a recording date where we were going to do just the audio version of a podcast, and it was on February 11th at 11 a.m. And we were told by Ashley's team or staff that she's going to be very close to having a baby. So we're going to try to squeeze in the podcast. I guess that's not the right metaphor to use or word to use. We're going to like fit the podcast in before she has the baby. Well, lo and behold, February 11th, that morning, we got a call that Ashley was in labor and the baby was born like right around 11 o'clock. So this is really special. We're celebrating.
Yeah, it was meant to be for sure.
Yeah. And what is your daughter's name?
Her name is Finley, and she is now almost 7 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason we were going to have the podcast then had nothing to do with sort of all that has transpired since, because you had just been named co-owner. I guess give us a little bit of a background into what happened like the month before the baby was born.
Yeah. I had been at Curiosity for about a year and a half or so, maybe a little less, and was on a path to becoming co-owner. And it became official in January, which was really exciting. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to own an advertising agency. And a month later, I went on maternity leave. It was wonderful.
Yeah. And then in the return from maternity leave, you had, because we kind of recontacted you, heard you were kind of going to be coming back. And then some other really big news came. Share with us that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot happened while I was on maternity leave. We won a few really big awards, a couple of big team awards while I was on maternity leave. Actually, the day I came home from having the baby, the team found out we won a big award. And then little to my knowledge, while I was on maternity leave, my team nominated me for this incredible award called the Adweek Women Trailblazers. And we got the call that I had actually won and been one of the 35 women featured in Adweek. And so it says a lot of things. One, I need to go on maternity leave a lot more often, apparently. But two, how important it is to surround yourself with an amazing team that can help carry your vision when you're not in the office and when you're not fully present, and how they can help take your story and your company's story to the next level, even when you're not there.
Yeah. And you really sort of, the topic today is how do you shift the way you think about yourself? Mm-hmm. And just that little story is like debunking the myth of motherhood. Like when we have a baby, we go on maternity leave, we sort of like close off a part of our life to refocus on a new part of our life. And some women choose that very intentionally. I mean, I did that for a part of my career, really, really wanted to be home. But you sort of had this like blossoming of your work life at the same time. And you have owners that put you in this position of ownership, brought you in while you were just getting ready to have your third child. So I guess give me your perspective sort of on that work-life balance. And, we've talked a little bit about how, you're in the middle of this total chaos in your life with 3 babies, 3 young girls, this new, sort of position with the company. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah. For me, it's never been about balance. Balancing is hard. I think about standing on one leg or on a balance beam like the gymnasts do. And it's really difficult to have equal weight at work and at home. And so for me, it's really been more about integrating and finding a career. I know not all careers this is possible, but for me, this was important, and part of my purpose in life is finding a career and a role where I could integrate both. I can have work time where I'm adult Ashley, and I can be thinking about business and strategy and the things that I went to school for that ignite my passion. But I also have to have time where I'm just mom or just wife or just friend, and work's not interfering with that. But it's this interesting middle that I think people forget, where work and family can kind of coexist together. And for me, that's where I find peace in such a chaotic world, is having a career and being a role model for being able to do both. And I think it's important for our teams as leaders, having our teams see both sides of us is important, because they also don't want to be missing their son's soccer game, and creating an environment for them where they can be fulfilled both professionally and personally is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just, I just think that you have a very young team too. So I think you're modeling to women, men coming up, how to do that integration. I would say I didn't do that so well. I sort of compartmentalized. I saw, my mom compartmentalize. And so I really think that's important as we're modeling for our daughters. One of the things that I asked you about when we had our sort of initial conversation is, because you said, I was nominated for this award and there's these amazing women, Kamala Harris, I'm so blown away by the fact that I'm in this list, in this company. And I had to say, okay, so Ashley, why you? How did you get it? And what about your work was significant and made a mark? So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that, because it kind of brings us a little bit to that sort of role modeling part of what you do too.
Yeah, I think to fully understand it, and trust me, I asked myself that a lot, but to fully understand it, I had to take myself back a few years. Before I was in this role, I had only had one little girl at the time. And for me, I was sitting on the couch. I remember this so vividly, and we're watching TV together. She's got to be 2 or 2.5 at this point. And she looks over at me and she says, "Skip it." And I was like, "What?" She said, "Skip it." And she was talking about the commercial. Well, I've dedicated 15 years of my career to making commercials.
Right.
And it was this mind-blowing moment for me. What am I doing? Am I in the right role? Am I in the right industry? I'm in a career where my daughter at a very young age is telling me that she wants to ignore my work. And it's important to me that I'm doing something that I'm proud of and that my family is proud of. And not too long after that, these things just happen so ironically, and the timing and the coincidences of it all. But not too long after that, I was sitting at a conference and Mark Pritchard, the CMO of P&G, was speaking. And he started talking about this movement called See Her, which is the largest movement on gender equality in the advertising industry. Their mission is really to make sure that young girls and women see themselves in the content that we create. And I'm a big believer that we are the storytellers of a lot of content. Brands put millions, billions, and billions of dollars into advertising. And it was in that moment, there's probably 3,000 people in the audience. I felt like he was speaking to my soul, that I thought, well, this is something I need to explore. And I just dug in, research, asking for meetings. I got a meeting with Mark Pritchard. I wanted to learn everything that I could. And I think that's a really key indicator that when you're on the right path, when you're in pursuit of your purpose. And I wouldn't stop. I was relentless. I went back to my team. I was at a different agency at that point, talking to them about it.
I want to ask real quick. So what is the key fact? That you just have this hunger?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Insatiable hunger that I just wanted to meet people and talk to people about it and learn what it meant and how could I help? Could I help? I wasn't quite sure. And honestly, the next sort of rung in that story is I got reconnected with some old colleagues of mine who were now at Curiosity, and they were, starting to rebrand the agency and kind of bring a new concept into the market. And they were curious if I was interested. And I think one of the first words out of my mouth was, "See Her. Have you heard of it? What do you think about it? Are you guys on board?" And of course they absolutely were. And so I say all of that just to know that I do think the work that we're doing to support See Her and gender equality and making sure that young women and women of all ages, races, sexual abilities, sizes, that they see themselves in the work that we're producing.
Yeah.
And that was certainly a big part of the recognition too.
Yeah. And then you had a super sweet full circle. Maybe
I
not
did.
The same daughter, but another daughter.
Yeah. So in between all of that, I had another baby, the theme of this podcast, I suppose. So when the magazine came out, I got a copy of it, and she was thumbing through it, and she looked at my picture and said, "I see mom." Mm-hmm. And it was like those three simple words was proof. I think we're constantly asking ourselves, am I on the right track? Like, have I found it? And, it's certainly not the end all be all, and I'm not done. And I have so much more to give to the industry and to my family. But that was like, for me, man, keep going. You're doing something right.
From skip this to I see mom. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And, Ashley, one of the things that I think has come up in conversations with you over and over and over is this insatiable curiosity, this passion for what you do. And I would just, we talk about, because I said, how did you get to where you are? And you talked a lot about reframing mindsets and how things that people might look at as like really bad childhood or really bad job, or you have this ability to sort of reframe it, and not just reframe the way you think about yourself, but reframe the way you think about your situation, your circumstances. And could you share a little bit about that? I mean, I don't know how much you want to go into, the growing up and all that brought to you and who you are today. And
yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer that, things that we might view as a setback can really be our superpower. Everybody's going through something. Most of the times you don't know when it's happening or if it happened or even what it is. And maybe it was something in your childhood or, in college, or maybe it's something that you're going through now. But my story is a common story, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs, and, money was pretty scarce for our family. And so I learned independence very early on. It wasn't just a skill that, my mom wanted me to have. I physically had to have it. And I look back on that time, and it's why I am who I am today. I saw such a tremendous work ethic from my mom, and the independence that I gained at a very young age has been a huge driver for me to maintain that independence, to have a vision, be confident in what I want, not afraid to speak up for it, and the respect that you get from others too.
You reminded me that, because I really want to be a good mom, and the overdoing it that I can do can hinder. And you talked about how being left alone, some people might look at that as, oh, poor Ashley, you were kind of left to fend for yourself. But you described that as like, that was my greatest gift.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, I learned a lot of life skills in that moment that are important for me to share with my children as well. They might experience it a little bit differently. Our circumstances are a little bit different, but nonetheless, instilling those values in them and giving them some of that experience is important.
So my question is, when you were going through it, you probably didn't understand that, oh, wow, this is going to be really helpful for me. It was probably hard. And there might have been even frustration at your mom or looking at other kids having it differently. How are you able to, I guess it's maybe perspective that we're able to look back and see the gifts, but tell me how, we talk about how we think and we reframe, and tell me how you were able to do that, or when did that happen for you?
So somebody very wise once told me that you think about your past like a rear view mirror, and you can look back, but it's quick. And it's just to make sure you're on the right track, because if you look back too long, you're going to be going in the wrong direction, and you got to be really focused on the future. And so I've just embodied that in everything that I do, in all of my work and in family life. I think our past is important, but certainly not something that we have to dwell on, or any circumstance that you're in the moment when it feels really hard. Think about the positive. And when you get on the other side of it, you don't need to forget it, but certainly find the good from it and use it for you to get to the next phase.
Well, but how do because I've heard the same thing, like, look, the past is the rear view mirror, but the windshield is what's ahead.
Yeah.
But how do you not look back and have bitterness?
I mean, I think that's probably every individual's choice. For me, there's no sense in having bitterness because I see the good that came out of it. And I would be neglecting all of the good if I focused on the bad. Mm-hmm. So I often will focus on what's good in a situation and see how I can replicate that in other experiences versus, sitting on the negative.
Yeah, which leads me to a great story that you shared about, because I think, when I coach women, I often hear, I'm stuck. I don't like what I do. I can't really figure out what my purpose is, or I'm giving to too many other people and not myself. And you shared a story that I think would be so valuable about your first job and how what you learned sort of like translated to the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, been there. If you are feeling like that right now, I have been there too. So when I graduated, I knew I wanted to go into public relations. I wanted to go into advertising, and I got my first job at the biggest agency in town. And my first client was the Ohio Tobacco Prevention Foundation. And most people might think that might sound boring or uninteresting. And lucky for me, the team that I worked with was incredible, which added to the whole experience. But my job on that account was to reduce tobacco use among college students. And I saw that. I got to go into work every day to save lives. You could have asked me at any point in the couple of years that I worked on that business, my job was to save lives. And I don't know if that was my team telling me that and me believing it, or, I was writing press releases. I was stapling papers for the most part, but I deeply believed that I was saving lives. And I felt accountable when Ohio went smoke-free. I felt accountable when Ohio college campuses went smoke-free. So there were lots of little wins for me that kind of like spurred that passion. Well, in advertising, all great clients go away eventually. That's just how it works. And for me, that happened. And I was very young and I was sitting there and I looked around and I thought, well, what will my next project be at this agency? And I had two choices: frozen vegetables and shampoo. And I'm like, how do you go from saving lives to selling vegetables all day? Like, my mind could not make that jump. And it had become so important to me to have passion and purpose in my work that I was like, okay, great. I just, I'm a first generation college student. I graduated with $40,000 in debt. I'm still paying off today. Like, what am I going to do? I got to go back to school. And so I got assigned to the frozen vegetable account, and I was miserable for a day or two. And then I remember specifically sitting down and thinking, okay, this fake it till you make it thing's not working for me. Like, it worked for a day. It worked for a couple hours. I was like, yeah, I really want this assignment. This is going to be great. But now I got to actually do the work. And the fire inside me wasn't there. And so I had to figure out, what's the next thing? Like, what happens after you faked it? And you're kind of making it, but like, what's that next level? And for me, it was really about linking it. And so I'm working on frozen vegetables. I want to save lives. What's the connection here? And so I started plotting it out. Okay, well, they've got this new technology. You can steam these vegetables in the microwave in half the time. Okay, well, maybe more people are going to eat vegetables. Maybe more kids will eat vegetables. Maybe if Americans ate more vegetables, we'd have healthier people. Maybe less hospitalizations, less obesity. Maybe, in fact, this press release that I am going to write about this steaming technology is going to save lives. And it sounds absolutely insane saying it out loud and to be like 25 years old doing this. But it worked. And I had to do it again and again and again and again. And I still do it today. It's so easy for me now. It's just this process that I go through. And I can do it almost in a second. And it might not be saving lives as much today, but like influencing, inspiring lives, like improving lives. For me, that's it. Like, I've got to make that connection in my work. And so,
Ashley, I just want to jump in because so many people say, okay, well, that's fine for her, or, but I think what you said is so important. You said that you first of all had to kind of like dig deep to figure out, okay, why do I care? How can this be important? How can this meet that bigger mission that is impactful for me? And then you said, I did it, but then I had to do it over and over and over and over and over until now I can do it quickly. And I think that's the important part, is that when we shift the way we think, whether it's focusing on, okay, what's good in this situation, or what's ahead, not what's behind, or how can I really connect to what my passion is, that I want to save lives, that it's a practice, it's a discipline, it's a training of the mind that becomes easier and quicker. Would you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And a good testament for me, I had somebody say to me, if I asked you to lay concrete tomorrow, would you do it? And instantly I was like, yeah, of course I would. The streets of Cincinnati, if we lay the concrete, they're going to be safer. There's going to be less accidents. I will go lay concrete for 6 months. I don't know how to do it. I'll figure that part out. But I could definitely find some passion in it. And for me, it's about the passion.
Yeah, I love that. So I have a question for you, because this is another thing that comes up a lot, where women that I work with, there's such an epidemic of second guessing, self-doubting, confusion. I guess, how do you deal with not only your own self-doubt, but the doubters out there?
Yeah, gosh, that's really complex. I mean, I doubt myself all of the time, but I often think, I kind of go into a situation thinking everybody does, right? Like, we're all kind of all in this together. You're not necessarily, smarter or better or more informed on the situation than I am. I often feel like we don't give ourselves enough credit. Like maybe we're in a less superior role, or we're paid less, or, we're not the loudest person at the table. But sometimes if you just step forward a little bit and give yourself the floor to speak, your thoughts and your point of view are just so impactful and important. I would also say you have to surround yourself by people that believe in you and lift you up, and not take away, all of the greatness that you bring to the conversation. I've been so blessed to have so many strong leaders in my life, and some bad ones that I've learned good things from, who have done that for me. And certainly I try to pass it along.
Yeah. Do you have any daily sort of success tips that you do? Because you talk a lot about just a general mindset, this ability to reframe, to see the good. Is there any sort of habits that you recommend or you do?
I think it's different for everybody. For me, I love to work out. So I get up early and I work out, and that's my alone time for the day, and kind of sets my mind right. I have people on my team that love music. They, like to take 15 minutes and listen to some music and get themselves pumped up, or give yourself the space to go on a walk, or just move. We did a session yesterday. At the top of the session, we were all just moving our body, and how you get so much confidence and energy just by being present with your body and your breath.
Yeah. And curiosity is where you work is I think infusing fun, infusing laughter, infusing that out of the box sort of experience to everyday life is a theme of just being there.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I'm really blessed. We have an incredible culture, and I know that not everybody has that. But certainly if you do, use it to your full advantage, and take advantage of groups, or, like-minded people that you have on your team that like the same thing. Go for a walk together in the middle of the day, or a run, or take your dog out,
Do you have a company dog?
So we have so many. We're definitely a dog family. Yeah, there's a lot of company dogs.
Yeah. So one of the things that I discovered too about you, I think through the Trailblazer Award, was that you actually have a fan club.
Yeah. Yeah, my two other co-owners and the team that works at Curiosity put that together to celebrate this award for me. So, I mean, just proof that, I'm spending my time with the right people at the company. So they created this fun little fan club that my family joined, and they made t-shirts that, my kids wear.
Yeah, but what's so great about that is that obviously you talk a lot about who you surround yourself with, but you're also modeling that by how you give to others, the passion you bring, the energy you bring. So it's infusing that. So the fan club sort of just like happens, on its own. So yeah. So I guess, if I was going to ask, okay, Ashley, you're in your career and you're far enough along to where you're feeling some success, what advice would you give to a woman who isn't sure what to do next?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on where you are in your journey. I feel like having that vision for what you want is step one. So no matter where you are, where you work, what team you're on, who you're working for, figure out what's most important to you. Write yourself a mission statement or a goal statement and, put it under your pillow at night. I mean, whatever it takes for you to truly believe it and manifest it. And then just start laying those dominoes. The first step, make sure you're clear on your vision and what you want. Is your current employer and your current role, is that going to give it to you? Or can you find those links where you are? If you're not, maybe it's time to find another opportunity or create your own opportunity. Mm-hmm. But I think just being really clear, it's hard for women. I don't know why it's so much easier for men. I feel like for them just to say what they want. Mm-hmm. But when a woman knows what she wants and she is vocal about it, really great things can happen. And you can open incredible doors that maybe you didn't think were possible.
Yeah. Okay. So the question, and I'm going a little farther here because this is a question that I actually ask myself all the time. What do I want? Because, I have 3 teenagers. We said at the beginning, I helped to build my husband's brand. So I poured, very, very intentionally, I poured a lot of my energy into other people, into other people's things, other people's priorities. And then, I'm not unlike many women who come out on the other end and go, okay, what do I want? There's the question, what do I do next? That's sort of like the tangible, what step do I take? But what do I want? And I will share with you that one thing that has really helped me is what do I want is, I know what I want to eat. I know what I want, I know what I like. I know, what I want to watch on TV. I know those things, but it's the real like deep soul questions. Like, what do I want? How do I want to make an impact? How do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to be around? And for me, it was actually stepping back a little bit before that question and checking in with what is real? Like, what is my reality? And then sort of like asking myself, is this what I like? Is this what I don't like? I know that sounds kind of like a micro, but just sort of getting in touch with where I am, what I'm doing, and then letting myself ask the question of what do I want? What do I like? Is this good? That's been really helpful, I think, for me and for other women that I've spoken to that are even less clear.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice, taking a step back and, measuring and monitoring your emotions and your feelings. I don't think we don't spend enough time doing that.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm really into is the Enneagram. Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, it's a system of 9 personality sort of like approaches to life. And everyone comes to life from a different sort of like, what is the motivation? What is sort of like the leading priority? And I'm a 4, and I share that because you talked about looking back and being able to translate the negative into the positive, seeing that all of this was working together for things that are good. Well, I have a really hard time doing that. I can like replay the past and turn around and look out the back window, not just the rearview mirror. And you said something that I just want to, again, kind of bring back. You said, ask yourself, what is good? Like, what was good? And I have actually like written that on my hand. I write the initials, WIG, what is good? So that I can like practice like seeing the things that are good, seeing the things that are right, so that I can move myself forward to what I might want to do next. Because lamenting in the rearview mirror is not moving me anywhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know, just that came to my mind as you were talking about.
I love that. Wig.
Yeah.
We'll start using that.
Yeah. 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 It's, so give me a little bit about sort of like what's on the horizon, what's coming with your family, with the agency, with you, anything?
The thing about agency life is it's just so dynamic and it's ever changing. I think you'll see a lot of very similar things for us. Just we're on a growth trajectory and just producing a lot of new work that I'm excited to bring into the market. Our team is growing, we're hiring. So that's all really exciting stuff. And really for me personally, just stepping into this leadership role and really understanding the type of leader I want to be and, the approach that I want to take with everybody at the agency, which is a really exciting challenge professionally. And then personally, I mean, I just I have to raise these 3 babies, which is a fun and unique challenge all on its own. So I'm excited, every step of the way with them, just trying to be in the moment and present and, just loving the 6-month stage and not worrying about when she's going to walk and when she's going to talk, and just right now, this moment is really important.
Yeah. And so how old are the 3 girls?
6 months, 3, and almost 6. Next week, She'll be 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish I could do Motherhood Over because I was so uptight. I wanted to do it so right, and I wanted to do it, again, what is the right thing, the good thing. I guess with you, because I wasn't at the beginning working a job, a full-time position, how do you how do you handle it? Because are you home working?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm really lucky now that we're home, and that has its own challenges, but it's messy and I'm not perfect and nobody is, and you shouldn't put those expectations on yourself. I have, in the height of COVID, when daycares were closed and schools were closed, I was very pregnant and had 2 kids at home nonstop. I mean, you ask my team, I changed a poopy diaper on an executive leadership team call. I have done my 3-year-old bit into an ice pack that had thawed out in the middle of a call, and I had to call poison control. But it's just, you have to give yourself grace and give others grace. And that's all I ask of my team too. There's going to be moments where I need it and they're going to need it. And we'll be there for each other because it is not easy.
Yeah. And again, you sort of said it at the beginning that it's an integration, that you're not Ashley, the corporate executive, and you're not Ashley, the mom. You're like Ashley, the person. And first of all, you're so lucky to work for a company that really allows that and embraces that. And again, you allow yourself to show up as you too. Like you are the one saying, hold on, I got to go change the diaper, or so permission to totally be yourself.
Yeah. It's so important. And I just stress, like, if you're in a role where you can influence that with your team, because it really does matter that you can bring your whole self to work, and bring your whole self to home when you need to.
And how do you, I know your girls are still little, but how do you do that? Because you talk about being a role model at work. Maybe they're too young to ask you this, but how do you do that with work? I'm sorry, with your kids at home?
Well, they see mom get up and get dressed and, go to work, and I show them my work and we talk about it. That my team knows who they are and they'll say hi, they'll see me on conference calls and just little things like that at this point. Back in the day, I would bring them to the office if I could, so they could see folks and, meet the team. And right now it's like really little ways, but I'll tell them about the work I'm doing. I ask them every day to tell me 3 things about school or daycare, and they'll tell me 3 things, and they ask me my 3 things. So I tell them, the three things that I focused on that day too.
Yeah, I love that. So we're going to kind of wrap up and get to some questions, but I do have another question for you, because you have really created this life that feels pretty amazing and pretty balanced. And you said it's still crazy messy and it's still chaotic with little kids. But what things in life have you had to compromise, or what are some things that you'll never compromise on? Like, how do you manage the things that come in that are like disruptive?
I mean, things I'll never compromise on are, I'm a very passionate person. Every review I've ever had since the day I started in the workforce, number one skill is bringing passion to the office every day. It's just who I am. I can get passionate about almost anything, but it's those links that I make. So for me, I will not sacrifice work that I'm passionate about. I will say no to things that I don't think will light my fire or the team's fire. We get assignments a lot that we just unfortunately have to say no to because it's not work that we want to get up and do every single day. I won't sacrifice my family or my family time, or, we often say we never want to be the reason you miss your kid's soccer game. That is true for my team and for myself as well. So those are things that I hold really near and dear to my heart, but I've certainly had to make a lot of sacrifices. I've worked with clients and on brands that, weren't great, or they weren't great people. Things like that. I could tell you a lot of stories, traveling while breastfeeding, nursing, I have a million stories that I could share about that too. There's lots of little sacrifices that happen every single day that I'm okay with, but it's not jeopardizing the things that are most important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And always sort of like keeping those front and center. And then I just love the whole connecting to like, how am I saving lives?
Mm-hmm.
And also even the message of see her, like, how can I create that for my daughters so that when they look at it, they see who they could possibly be, or that's really cool. So I think we're going to see if there's any questions. I have a couple last minute questions that I like to ask you, like some sort of like quick fire questions. But Claire, if you wanted to pop on and let us know if there's any questions, if you haven't put one in the chat yet, feel free to do that. Or
yeah. So for anyone who wants to ask a question, I have chat set up so that if you chat with me, with the host, I'll see it directly and I will volley it over to Elle and Ashley. So go ahead and type in your questions there. Elle, if you want to get started on the rapid fire while we wait for those to come in, that would be great.
Yeah. So first question that I have for you, Ashley, is because the podcast is called She Made It. So the first question is, when was a time in your life where you felt like you made it?
Man, I am still making it, for the record. But I mean, the most recent one for me would have to be when my little girl said, "I see mom." Like, I'll never forget it. I have it on video. I'll save it for the rest. I'll play it at her wedding, probably. That was a big one for me.
And I love that it wasn't the award. It was that. Yeah. So tell me a time when you thought, okay, I'm never going to make it.
Oh, man. I mean, the frozen vegetable one is probably the earliest one in my career that I've had. I've had, some difficult bosses in the past that have just taken my passion and drained me. And I've had to get up and, just put on a brave face for it. And for me, that was always really challenging. Having a good leader has been just so important to me my whole career. If I believe people leave jobs because of their leader, and I have done that twice. Mm-hmm. So, that would probably be one of the times where I thought, man, I don't know if this is right for me.
Mm-hmm. But it's good to know, it's good. Again, it's that knowing what you want piece that sometimes knowing what you don't want helps inform that.
It really does. And then not being afraid to go get what you want. I think some people would sit in a role like that and just keep going. And, man, you just put a little foot in the other direction and see what else is out there. Sometimes you can achieve your goals.
Yeah, that's before we go to the questions I want to go a little bit longer on that. So one thing we didn't talk about is courage. We talked about, really understanding why you want to do something and how can you reframe your thinking. We talked about the things in the past that may not be positively viewed from the world, but we see how they've helped us. Okay, so what about you're in a situation that's miserable, but you have to go, you have to shift. And that takes like huge courage. How do you do that?
It really does. It takes huge courage. And I think courage comes from confidence too. You know, if you are confident in your mission and your goal and your purpose, what you want to achieve, then the courage is a little bit easier, but it's still hard because there's so many what ifs and unknowns. I've had a couple of situations like that. I just recently at my former job, I left a great job, a team that I loved. You know, I had quote unquote made it where I was. I loved my role, everything. But this other opportunity came about and it was completely unknown. I didn't know if I was making a huge mistake. I didn't know if I would connect with all of the people. But I knew what my passion was and what my mission was. And that was going to get me closer to it than the current role I was in. And so it took a lot of courage to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you did say, I love how you said you have to like turn one foot slightly another direction.
Yeah.
That, you know, everything in life is like tiny baby steps.
Yes.
And it's only through perspective that we have the ability to look back and see how far we've come. But in the moment, it feels painful and it feels scary. And, you know, I've said before that the only reason change happens is because we have to let go and say goodbye to something else. So even though change towards something good is inspiring and positive, there's still grieving and there's still that transition and the transition between what is and what's going to be. You know, labor transition is like the worst time of the whole thing. And the transition in any part of life is kind of the hardest. It's like I talked about, I was on a call yesterday and we were talking about dropping our kids off at college. And you drop your kids off at college, and this is the stage of life I'm in, and you come home and you sort of like wander around the house. Like, what do I do? And it's not, you know, that's the transition. It's that in between. And the goal is not to jump too fast, actually. It's to allow yourself that time to be super clear, super, you know, feel the feelings, make the shift, don't rush, you know, don't jump the fence. So, yeah. Any questions, Clara?
Yeah, so we have one. I'll just read it. When we talk about shifting how you think about yourself, any thoughts about body image, fighting the temptation to rip ourselves apart, particularly as we get older, or struggling to be our best selves physically when juggling other priorities?
It's a really good question. And Elle, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on this too. I mean, from the work that I create, body image is just so important. And it's a big reason why we partnered with See Her. And it's a big part of my existence, making sure that all women are represented, size, race, everything. And a lot of the brands that we work with are really taking this on too and trying to make a difference. I think, you know, how you show up to work for me is very different every day. I rarely have on makeup and wash my hair. Let's get real. I did for you guys today. But there's days when I just can't, and I'm going to show up. I'm going to be the best self I can be in that moment. But there's days where, you know, I feel like I've got a little bit more time and I can put myself together if I need to. So for me, it's about embracing who you are and where you are and not being so focused on, you know, exactly what size you want to be or, you know, anything like that. Just love who you are right now and show up your best self every damn day. And, you know, people will love and respect you for that.
Yeah. It's so good. And it's so funny because I was just thinking about this because I have a daughter. You have 3. You know, my daughter's 18. And I remember like when body image became a problem for me. And I'm a pretty small person. And I think that it's a universal experience for women. I mean, no matter what size you are, I think all women look at their body critically. And so my sort of goal with my daughter and for myself is to, you know, focus on the good, like you said earlier, but also let it be part of the process, because I think we can't escape sort of what the media, what our society, what culture sort of tells us and what the ideal woman is. So allow sometimes that I don't know, this might sound counter positive thinking, but it's like, accept that you're going to struggle and work through that. Grow to love your body, grow to accept your body. And that also is a practice. That also is a process, to not just continue to just put it to the side, say, okay, how can I learn to love my body? How can I learn to love myself? And you've said it a million times on our call today. How can I model that? How can I model that for my daughter, model that for other women? Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah. Check in with me in a couple of years, and hopefully I can share some great content that we have produced to help change that game, because it is up to brands in the media, like you said, in the entertainment industry, to help change those norms. And that's the kind of stuff that fires me up, because that's what we potentially as agencies have the opportunity to influence.
Yeah. And we talk about, how do we get in better shape? How do we lose weight? How do we work on loving our body?
Yeah. And focusing more on the mental health of it. If exercise for you makes you feel better mentally, physically, that's great. It doesn't matter what size you are.
Yeah. We just have to get everybody else on board with that.
That's right. That's right.
Anything else, Clara? That was a good question.
Yeah. So we have another one for Ashley, and it's, do you remember how or when you first connected to your professional purpose?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think it goes back pretty far. In high school, I was a radio show host for our high school radio station. So
I can totally see that.
I started to experience a little bit of communications and PR in high school. And when I went to Miami, they had a PR major, and I thought, well, that's really interesting. I got an internship, fell in love with agency life, and that's kind of my story. I just kind of go all in on something. I loved it so much. I just wanted more and more of it. And I there's a lot of luck too, I have to say. I got my first job. I lucked into the account that I got on, which was the anti-tobacco movement. I lucked into the team I got on, and they took me under their wing. I mean, my boss at the time is still my best friend today. But I didn't waste that experience. I just dug in on it and learned as much as I could from her and everybody in the account, and then tried to replicate it the rest of my life. That's what I've tried to do, is replicate that feeling that I knew and that I loved so much.
And I'm just going to jump in, because what's the quote, that luck is preparation plus timing. So you also showed up, did the work. You talk about being all in. And then luck happens.
Yeah. And being aware, I don't know, hearing my daughter say, skip it, I don't hear, a lot of the things that they say, trust me. Why in that moment did it resonate with me so much? And then connecting the dots along, the year that, transpired after that little comment. I was so hyper aware of it that it was easier for me to connect those dots, but you have to want it too.
Sarah?
Yeah. So our last question is, how do you stay on track with daily routines or goals when business demands so much of your time?
God bless the women who can. I don't. I try, and I fail a lot. On days when I can, I'll put it on my calendar that I'm going to work out in the morning and hope that nothing gets scheduled over it. I try and schedule some mental health moments throughout the day, just block myself for 15 minutes to grab a drink of water or go outside or something like that. But it's difficult. It's a juggle. I got to figure out what's most important in the moment and allow myself to deprioritize other things. But I give myself this space and the permission to do that.
I'll jump in, because I will say, because of the phase of life where you are with your daughters and where I am is very different. And the way that space and time changes is very different. So remembering that life is seasons, and that the season you're in isn't going to be the season forever. So having a little bit of, you talked about grace and patience. But I would say, I don't know if this question was for me, but I'll chime in. I think for me, a key change has been a morning routine, even if it's 10 minutes. Just setting my day off in a consistent way has made a dramatic difference in the whole day for me. Yeah, so that's my little 2 bits. So Claire, we're almost to the top of the hour. So is there any other quick question, or do you want to kind of we want to do our giveaway and sort of let people know how they can connect past this?
I think it's time to move into the giveaway and letting them know about the free coaching call with you.
Okay.
So I can share the giveaway winner. I did a little sneaky.
Let me say what it is real quick. So we put together, and I don't have it here, but it's this like little inspirational bundle, because we're sort of talking about mindset and how do we change the way we think. So there's these like mindset reminders, little notepads and stickers. And I'm sorry I can't show it to you, but it's really cool. It'll make you curious.
Yes.
So who's our winner?
Our winner is, drumroll please, Krista Nicholas. So I see that she's on the call right now, and Krista, we will reach out to you and ask for your address. So congratulations.
Yay. Yeah, and then anything you want to share, or would you like me to share?
Sure. So I'll share first, and then if there's anything you want to add, Elle is offering right now free resistance breakthrough sessions. So if this conversation between Ashley and Elle inspired you or left you with more questions, it's the perfect opportunity to have a totally free coaching call with Elle. There's no obligation attached to it. And it's just a really great chance to share where you're at and get some objective feedback on more possibilities for your life.
Yeah, thank you, Clara. And I think that says it all. There'll be a link and maybe a follow-up email. Is that how they'll get that? Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And then, Ashley, how can people sort of follow you from here if they want to keep an eye on what you're doing?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great way. I'm also on Instagram, but I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I would start there. And I look forward to connecting with everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Any last thoughts anyone has before we go?
Krista's excited that she won the giveaway.
I always have a last thought, but I want to leave space for others to talk. Yeah. Okay. I'll just say thank you, everyone, for coming. We are going to have another webinar in October. We're going to have an October and November guest. October is about self-love, an author who shares sort of like real practical tips on how do you cultivate that love for yourself. She's dynamic, as well as Ashley. And our November one, too, will be interesting. So stay in touch about that. And just have a great day. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us, taking the time. And thank you so much, Ashley, for being here. And just again, congratulations on all your success.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of She Made It. If you want to learn more about how the Enneagram can help you on your path to growth, schedule a free 1-hour clarity call with Elle. Just visit ellezimmerman.com, scroll down, and click on Free Clarity Call on the blue banner.